goodness me. It's so hot. Oh, hello.
Hello.
Who's this wonderful lady in front of me? Anyway, good afternoon, guys. I hope everybody's enjoying the sun. I hope you're putting enough cream on. I went out today and really enjoyed it, but came back. It was really hot. So I've got around about two fans here, and all your fans on yours too. Yeah. But also, I've got a lovely person on right now, and she's called Beth Penfold. Beth, how are you?
I'm pretty good. I'm also far too hot, and I'm being laughed at by my US clients because I'm sort of apologizing for having sort of sweat dripping down my face. And they're like, just put on your aircon. And we're like, I don't have any. This is Britain. But anyway, so
Yes,
it's not
I had somebody earlier about that. They said about doing that. Just put on your air. Can you do that again?
fun. Use your aircon. But actually, I just had to go and do some co-working in the Tesco cafe because they've got aircon. So I did that with a friend of mine, and that worked. So I'm just going to just spend the next couple of days just shambling around Tesco, I think, because it's cool.
Yes, cooler. And then just jump in the fridge, take all the food out of the freezer, and just kind of like go in there. Anyway,
Escape.
so what you got for me today? What you going to talk to me about?
Well, I've done a few of these now, and it's really good fun. And I just thought I'd sort of take the opportunity to say a bit about what I do, kind of where I'm coming from. Obviously, a lot of the reason I'm here is because I am someone who's been through challenging times. I'm an abuse survivor. I used to have bad anxiety and depression, and I have, come through that. So that's one reason. But what I do now, what I actually do with my life is spend time helping people, feel better about their lives too, help them overcome these sorts of challenges. So I just wanted to talk a bit about it because it's, change and coach. So I am the change coach, but those two terms are actually quite often misunderstood. And so I just wanted to sort of say a little bit about it, really. My spiel when I go to networking events, which obviously I've been mostly doing on Zoom, but starting to do in person, it's very exciting, is there are two types of change that happens to you and change that you want to make in your life. And with both those types of change, I can help. Okay, so and examples of change that happens to you would be redundancy, serious illness, relationship breakup, that sort of thing. Changes that you want to make, maybe giving up smoking, some other sort of wellness, anxiety management, up leveling your job, getting a better job, that sort of thing. Any area of your life, wherever you want to make change, then I can help you do it. But why on earth would you need someone to help you make change? I mean, you just do it, right? You just make a New Year's resolution or whatever it is, and you go, do you know what? From tomorrow, I've got a plan. I'm gonna start doing this a bit differently, and I'll get much better outcomes. And you work it all out in your sort of higher conscious thinking mind, and you understand what the benefits would be of making that change, how that would impact your life in a positive way, and you're all good to go. And for the first few days or whatever, you're going great guns. It's all going smoothly. You're sticking to whatever the new change is. And then suddenly something happens. It might be that other issues happen, other events happen, or it might be it's usually some sort of thought in your head that sabotages you, and you end up right back where you were. And most of us do this kind of cycle again and again and again. Many of us spend our whole lives going, I will give up smoking. I will this time, or I will keep the weight off this time. It's going to be different, And so what I do is I help people make that difference so that the change lasts. And the difference essentially is, I speak about this a lot, but it's what we call your unconscious mind. So your much older mind from before we were even humans. The limbic system, it's also known as. And, always to make clear to people that even though we think most of the time with our conscious mind, that's only 10% of the actual power, the brain power that we have. 90% is your unconscious mind. People always ultimately make decisions with their heart. They always ultimately go with their gut. All of these things, they're all unconscious mind things. And your unconscious mind, it wants you to stay alive. It wants you to stay safe. And anything that represents doing things in a new and untested way feels like risk to the unconscious mind. So it disagrees completely with your conscious plan to do things in a different way. It doesn't see the benefits that you consciously see of getting that better paid job or whatever. It just sees the potential risk of pain or death. Because remember, your unconscious mind still thinks that you're living in caves with saber-toothed tigers and things. It doesn't understand that you're living in the 21st century. And so it starts to resist you, and it resists in all sorts of clever ways. It puts all sorts of thoughts, generates all sorts of thoughts in your head. It brings up all sorts of old resisting sort of beliefs you have, like, I'm not good enough to do this anyway. I don't deserve this. I won't be able to keep it up. All sorts of limiting statements that just go on and on and on in your mind, because most of us, of course, we don't manage that conversation in our mind. We're just kind of hostage to our thoughts all the time. So our unconscious mind just has a complete carte blanche to just flood us with all the reasons why this change isn't a good idea, why we shouldn't be doing this. And because it can just do that 24/7, if you think about, Guantanamo or whatever, playing loud rock music, people do succumb. It's unbearable. And that's the kind of resistance our unconscious mind puts up. And that's why, despite our best efforts, we often find that we're going back to our old ways again and again. I've given the example before, the very sad example of people experiencing domestic abuse. It takes the average woman in Britain 7 attempts to successfully leave an abusive partner. And that's because as soon as she gets to the refuge, her unconscious mind kicks in with, yeah, but you've got such a history together, or yeah, but it's great between us most of the time, or yeah, but he really loves me, and he's had his problems, or she's, whatever gender the other partner is. And it's all these thoughts that just go round and round and round, and most of us have no way to shut those thoughts off. And it's that eventually has a woman voluntarily leaving that safety, leaving that refuge, and going back to that abusive relationship, because it shuts off that mind torture, that mental torture of the unconscious mind constantly saying, oh, you don't want to be doing this. You want to be going back to the routine that we've health and safety checked, and we found that even though you're miserable in that relationship, it hasn't actually killed you yet, so that's fine. Yeah. So it's that kind of primitive constant resistance that it's just too difficult to work with. So the way that I help clients essentially is that I help them to understand that their unconscious mind isn't trying to sabotage them, really, it's trying to keep them safe. And I help them to put the change they want to make in terms that the unconscious mind can get behind. So I get them to start visualizing. Visualization is a technique that lots of successful people and athletes and all that use. They visualize what life would be like after the change and bring up all these sort of positive emotions, because the unconscious mind is the realm of emotions. So you're kind of showing the unconscious mind a picture of, look, this is what it'll look like. Because most people, they try to make a change, but they've got no idea, and they're not telling their unconscious mind what the result's going to be. So the unconscious mind therefore goes, oh, this is probably going to be bad. We don't want to be doing this. So we set a really clear, we set a SMART goal, and we make a really clear visualization of how good this is going to feel, how safe this is going to feel, everything that's going to placate the unconscious mind. And then there's loads of other interventions that I make and steps so that we can, step by step make a forward plan towards that change and embed that in the unconscious mind so that it becomes automatic. So like, when you learn to drive and you're all fingers and thumbs with a hang on, knob here, pedal down, check the mirror, but once you've learnt that and been doing it and doing it and doing it, you do it automatically while you're chatting to someone else or putting your lippy on. Steve, I know you like to put your lippy on in the car. We do all these things automatically because when we've learned something very well, like walking, it becomes the responsibility of the unconscious mind because it runs all our automated processes like breathing and making our heart beat and growing a baby inside you, all that sort of really important stuff. So I help clients to, instead of change just being in the pathetic, tiny 10% conscious mind, I embed it in the extremely powerful 90% unconscious mind, and then it becomes automatic. So people who've given up smoking with me, they don't think about having a fag anymore. It just is, it's not there, just like vegetarians don't sort of go, oh my God, I really want a bacon sandwich. They're just completely happy to eat vegetarian food because they have a belief in their unconscious mind that for some reason, eating animals is wrong for them. So it's that kind of difference that I make, which allows people to make successful change.
Just a question.
Yeah.
What is unconscious behavior then?
What's unconscious behavior?
Yeah.
Well, of course, we're doing that all the time. I mean, I could talk about this for ages, but we all grew up in tribes. That's where we started, and being part of the tribe meant life or death. If you were rejected from the tribe, you would surely starve or be attacked by a more powerful predator, so you had to be part of the tribe. And our unconscious mind is fascinating because because it believes we still live in Stone Age, it's still constantly scanning any other human being that comes into our realm, into our sort of space, and it's picking up all of the unconscious behaviors that other human being is given off. So everything you hear about, reading body language and being able to tell when people are lying, all that sort of, some of that's been, built up a bit for television dramas and things like that. But essentially, it's absolutely the case that, again, because your unconscious mind's main job is to keep you alive, which is why it runs your breathing and your heartbeat and all that. That's what it's all about. It's constantly scanning what's going on. Is there some sort of danger coming? Is this person in front of me going to be a danger? And we also are giving off unconscious behaviors all the time because of whatever's going through our head. If you're thinking about something, often your face goes into a frown, or when we lie, we find it really difficult to look the other person in the eye, etc. And that's just because our emotions create a state in our brain. And also, interestingly, people often look, they say, oh, if someone's looking to the right, then they're lying and stuff like that. That's not quite right. But essentially, when somebody's thinking as they're speaking, as I'm doing now, they tend to look to different directions. So I've just done that on purpose, right? And that's because they're accessing different parts of their brain. Right. So if I look, I'm probably in reverse to you, but I'm looking up to my top left, and what I'm doing is I'm looking up to a visual memory of, say, my notes for this session. And if I looked that way, across that way, I'd be remembering something that I'd heard that somebody had said, things like that. So all of these unconscious behaviors, these unconscious eye movements and things, they are happening all the time, and all other humans are picking them up unconsciously. And one of the things about neuro-linguistic programming, that I'm a master practitioner of, is that it teaches you how to notice this consciously, which gives you a huge amount of insight into another human being. And it really helps me as a coach because I'm reading the person's body language as well as what they're saying. And of course, the military use it. The military encourage people to be aware of, sort of like your hair standing up on the back of your neck and feeling in your gut, and suddenly a cold feeling, all that. That's all a response. That's your body trying to tell you that your unconscious mind has noticed something that you're not consciously aware of. And people in the military are trained to to trust that instinct, to trust that extra sense, as it were, and because it can make the difference between life and death.
Right. Okay. If you have a client come to you and they said, Beth, I'm going through like a trauma, like I was abused a while back.
Yeah.
What steps do you take?
Well, so first of all, I make sure they're safe, because I'm not trained in any sort of therapy or medical counselling and anything like that. I make sure they're safe, and if they're safe and they want to investigate and move forward and become free of this, then obviously, first of all, we build trust, because it's a very intimate relationship between a coach and a client. But essentially what we need to do is, the reason that people find it difficult to move on from something like abuse is because the thoughts and the feelings around that abuse stay in their head as if they're happening now. So people get PTSD, they get trauma, they get sleep problems, they get other behaviors like self-harming, because thoughts and feelings, your brain can't tell the difference between something happening now and something that's just a memory, right? So every time you bring to mind a bad memory, you actually feel bad in the moment. You feel bad now, if you see what I mean. Just like when you remember a funny joke that made you laugh out loud, as you remember it, you actually smile and giggle a bit, right? And that's because our brain can't tell the difference between what's happening now and what's just a memory, or what's a thought about the future. That's what anxiety people suffer from, is they're worrying about the future, but their brain thinks it's happening now, so it's bringing up the fear as if that bad thing was happening right now, and that's why they get panic attacks. So we'd be looking at ways to challenge those thoughts and feelings, and to put them in the past, to let them go, so that the person can understand that whatever happened to them has happened, and now it's finished, right? We're often left with really negative beliefs about ourselves, like, that abuse happened because I'm worthless, or I'm worthless because that abuse happened. I don't deserve to be happy. I don't deserve to be loved. So we challenge and overcome all of those negative beliefs that keep us in a place of negative self-confidence, and possibly self-harm. And that takes as long as it takes. But I have quite a lot of interventions that I'm able to use that allows people to get to the heart of what it is that they're believing about themselves and about their experience that's stopping them from healing, stopping them from moving forward. And then we tackle that and we reprogram. This is what neurolinguistic programming is about. We then reprogram with a much more helpful belief.
Right. Okay. And say if someone was in a really bad way, do you kind of like do you refer them on to other people, or do you try to work out the problem?
Yeah, it just depends patient by patient. I always reserve the right to not work with a patient if I feel that they're not safe, and I absolutely check, for instance, that everybody I deal with who say has anxiety or anorexia, that they've been to a GP first, that they've had an official diagnosis, and that they're held safely within that NHS pathway, and that also the doctor's aware that they're seeing me, because as I say, I don't have any medical training. But people do get very upset during some of their sessions, because they sometimes realize things for the first time that they've never realized before, and they also sometimes let go of very strong, very powerful negative emotions. And that can be, in the moment, quite challenging, quite difficult. But I have various techniques like hypnosis that helps to keep them in a calm, safe, relaxed state where they feel in control of what's happening. And I remind them of the absolute truth, which is, as I just said earlier about their unconscious mind, it's all about keeping them safe. And if there's anything that maybe from the past that they need to tackle in order to move forward, if their unconscious mind doesn't believe it's in their best interest to look at that, then there'll simply be a block. Like, I'll notice the person's body language just shut down.
Yeah.
and that means it's not safe for that person to do that. So we take a little bit longer, build more trust, work around it, look at other aspects of the issue, and then later on in the process, the unconscious mind feels it's okay to look at that. It's okay to let those emotions go, let that belief go, and that's kind of how it works, bit by bit.
I've got a question for you from Tom. Tom says, "Hi Beth, do you use hypnotism?"
Hypnosis, yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. So the most important thing about hypnosis is that all hypnosis is self-hypnosis. You cannot hypnotize another person, right? There's a lot of rubbish talked about hypnosis and trance, and of course it's been made into a stage act, but it is in fact a very powerful and useful technique. It was first developed in the First World War. I don't know if you know this, but it was first developed in the First World War. On the battlefields in the hospitals, because they kept running out of morphine, they kept running out of anesthetics. So they would put people into trance, and not only did it allow them to go through an amputation with minimal pain, it also made the recovery times much more quick and easy, and much better recovery rate. So it's been around for a long time, and all it is helping someone to get into a calm, useful state. So it's like if you imagine you're on an aeroplane and you've got a long haul flight, right? And your leg room's a bit limited and you're not that comfy and you're a bit thirsty. And then this lovely air hostess or cabin crew comes along and says, here's a lovely cushion for you. Let me just put your seat back a bit so you've got a little bit more leg room. Let me show you this lovely range of drinks, and so, that person's helping you to get into a state of comfort where you're ready for that flight, you're ready for that journey, right? But you could at any point say, no, I don't want your cushion. No, I don't like any of those drinks. You're in control of whether you take those things that are being offered, which allow you to move into a calm state for that journey. And hypnosis is exactly the same. So I can suggest things. I can suggest that you feel more relaxed, that there's a lovely warm light, flowing down your body, all that sort of thing. But again, if somebody's unconscious mind doesn't feel like doing that, doesn't feel that safe and comfortable, then it simply won't happen. But all trance, all hypnosis is just the same as if you have been driving somewhere and you're like, oh, I'm home already. Okay, fine. What, or, sometimes if you're in the middle of a really good movie, right, you might not notice, particularly you boys out there, you might not notice that your partner's trying to ask you something sat next to you on the sofa, right? And that's because what they wanted to call hypnosis, the guy who invented hypnosis and discovered it, he wanted to call it monoideism, which isn't very catchy, is it? But the point is, you're so focused on one thing that it excludes everything else. And that's all a hypnotic state is. It's useful because it lets you focus totally on what it is you want to work on, and you're not distracted by other stuff around you. So that's all it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, every time I do that, I get things chucked at me from the wife. So.
Yeah, but I've done that too. I've been so engrossed in something, that there's been a child going, "Mum," and they've asked me 3 times or something like, "What?"
Yeah. So with the change coaching, if someone's listening right now or will listen, and they're saying, right, okay, I need some help. I need to go to Beth, and what is the first thing that they actually need to do? Do they need to say, look, Beth, I've got a problem? What do they have to do?
Well, they should check out my website, which is www.thechangecoach.org. So pretty straightforward. Check out my website and see all the services I provide. Because I run also like a coaching group for women who have really busy lives but still want to have their own goals, have stuff that's about them, like a hobby they'd like to do or something they'd like to achieve that year. So it's not just for, phobias and trauma and things like that. Coaching generally, it's not so much about fixing people that are broken, right? It's more about the fact that we're all on this amazing journey called life, right? And as we go along that path, challenges come up for us, and those challenges may look like anxiety, or they may look like toxic thinking, or they may look like unhealthy habits like smoking or whatever. They can take any sort of shape or form, and it's all about just helping somebody to overcome that challenge and carry on moving forward and enjoying their life. And some of my clients are really elite candidates, people who are already earning like 6 figures or something, right? Much more successful than me. So they're already great at what they do, but they want to see how far they go, right? So they want to be at the top of their game. Just like if you think about Premier League footballers, right? They have coaches, but not because they're rubbish at football, because they're great at football. And with a little bit of support and structure and a little bit of guidance, they can become amazing at football. So it's not just about fixing people. It's more about growth and learning and being able to move forward through obstacles in your life and let go of stuff that's weighing you down. Like you've got a big backpack full of rocks, one is kind of weight issues, and one is lack of self-confidence, and abusive relationships, or just letting go of those rocks and just being able to move forward and have the kind of life.
Can people actually let go? Or is it still going to be in their conscious mind that there's always something, the problem is always going to be there?
Well, what they can do is they can let go of the emotions, because it's the emotions that torture people. It's the feelings about what happened that make it difficult. Because let's just say they heard a story on the news about someone who was driving along in their car and they had a crash on the M6, right? And that person was quite badly injured, but survived, right? You'd watch that news story and you go, all right, someone driving along the M6 had a crash. Okay, fine, right? Imagine if it was you. You were driving along the M6 and you had a crash and you were badly injured, but you survived, right? The difference is not the facts of the matter, but all the feelings of fear, terror, physical pain, all of that. That's what makes it traumatic and difficult. So it's letting go of those feelings, and coaching can absolutely help you to do that.
Right. Okay. And with the coaching, how long is it? Is it for so many months or so many weeks? How long?
Well, I do sort of one-off sessions for people who've got a really difficult problem and they just can't decide what to do, and that's like a sort of 3-hour session where we just look at it really deeply. And but my main program is like a 12-week program, which looks really deeply from end to end at any aspect that you want to change in your life, and it gives time to open it all up, think of solutions, and then allow time for those solutions to embed. Because while we're trying to do the new habits, do the new change, obviously our unconscious mind may try to throw up resistance. So that's when we work on what that resistance is, where's that coming from, what's the limiting belief behind that, and changing that things. And that's the bit where you are therefore unable to embed it in the unconscious mind, because you're dealing with all that resistance as you're going along and negating it, just sort of clearing it away.
My last question is, can people really change?
Yeah, definitely. Of course they can. Because the brain itself is plastic, remember. We're just a big bunch of cells, aren't we? Yeah. And neuroscience tells us that the brain is plastic, meaning that, it's a bunch of cells, and the neuro pathways that are in your brain. So you have like one little road, which is a particular habit. And if you change that habit, then that string of cells dies, and a new pathway, a new neural network, it's called, grows for the new habit. So for me, right, I used to punctuate my life with cigarettes. I used to love smoking so much. Even when I'd climb to the top of a hill or something and have a fag, and I'd have a fag in between courses at dinner, I'd have a fag first thing in the morning. I absolutely wouldn't want to do that now. So that's changed. Also, I used to be completely phobic about dogs. I used to be terrified about dogs. Particularly when I had kids, I was convinced that some dog was going to rip my child apart and all that, and it got so bad that I was kind of like shouting at dog owners who were just minding their own business, and shoving my kids up trees to sort of escape dogs which weren't going to attack them at all. But it was in my mind.
Yeah.
And I was able to go from being phobic about dogs to owning a dog. So you
All right.
absolutely can change in very real terms. You can't fake that. You can't go from being terrified of dogs to owning a whippet. You just can't.
No, that's it.
So absolutely real change is possible. And
Yeah.
I do this because there's nothing remarkable about me. I'm just a normal average person. And if I can make these concrete changes, then anybody can. It's just helping to explain to people how to do it, because we don't get taught this stuff in school.
No, you don't. No, and also you're a lovely person to talk to, and
Thank you.
people like you, they need people like you to help them through tough times. There's Kate. Where is it? To Hi, Steve. I find your remark about can people change. Well, I've been through quite a bit in my life, and I've changed already. I know your story, and you've changed too. Well
Yeah,
done for doing. Well done for doing that.
yeah,
I'm glad.
absolutely right, Kate. Yeah.
I'm glad. Thank you so much. And people can change if they want to. And if you're kind of like out there right now and you need help, you know, get in contact with Beth. You know, and see what she can do for you. There's ways. If you're thinking that, oh, but I want Beth's help, but she lives too far away. But there's other things. Do you do Zoom?
Oh, I see all my clients on Zoom. I've got clients in California, Mexico, United Arab Emirates. I've got clients all over the world.
So
So
there you
geography.
go, guys. There you go. And she's a lovely person. I won't say it, but she is really, really nice. So please contact her. And life. At the end of the day, people can change, but you've got to change too. At the end of the day, Beth, thank you so much. Love seeing you,
You too.
and you keep smiling. Enjoy the sun.
Thank you.
I know I was hot today. Yes, it's really hot.
All
All right.
right. Thanks, Steve. You take care
Okay.
too.
Yeah. Love to everybody. Love to your family. Bye.
You too. Bye.
There you go, guys. Anybody can change in the world, can't they? All you got to do is you got to accept it and then kind of like say, okay, change. I was like that years ago. Things were in my life and things were going wrong. I'm not perfect, but at the end of the day, we can all change if we want to. But I changed because, at the end of the day, because the love of God in my life. And you can change too. So in the meantime, guys, see you later on. Love you all. I'm going to be back around about 8 o'clock tonight with the lovely Susan Lee. And please join me then. Thank you very much for joining me. But don't forget, anybody can change, but you are the person who's got to do it. Love you all. Good night. God bless.